What do I tell myself after getting bad grades in an exam? In this video, I'm going to give you some tips based on my previous failures because I know what it's like. I understand the misery. I understand how demotivating it is to not get the grades that we want. So let's talk about it. First, I'm gonna share my backstory so you understand where I'm coming from. And if you already know my A-level backstory, oi, shout out, you're probably a subscriber. Safe, bam, safe. But basically, you don't need to watch this part. Just use the timestamps below and skip ahead to when I get to the actual tips. But for those who don't know my A-level backstory, here it is. The first time I did year 12, I got DEUU. Now, if I were to continue year 13 with those grades, there is no way I'm going into university unless it's like through clearing or something, which is something I didn't want to do. And there were universities which I wanted to apply for which asked for at least ABB or AAB, and with DEUU I'm just bound to just do worse for A2 because A2 is a lot harder than AS. So that just kind of leaves me with one choice, and that was to retake my A-levels. I had to drop my ego and I had to sort of embrace the embarrassment of like failing, because now everyone in sixth form knows that I flopped. So I don't know, that was how I felt anyway. But fast forward to the year that I retook, and fast forward again to year 13, well technically year 14 for me. Results day comes, mine got AAB. Jeez, AAB, yeah? So now that raises the question, and I get this a lot in real life as well. How did you bounce back from those poor grades? How did you recover? What did you tell yourself? Like how did you do it? My first piece of advice is to take accountability. After you get bad results, right, as tempting as it is, try your best not to be like, oh, whatever, I don't care, or oh, grades don't define me. Basically, don't try wipe it off your shoulders as if you don't care, but deep down, you actually do. Don't blame your bad grades on other people. Don't blame your grades on like crappy teachers or crappy resources. You have to take some accountability for your mistakes, and you have to be empathetic to yourself as well. The first step into solving a problem is acknowledging that there is a problem in the first place, and in this case of getting bad grades, some of those reasons is your fault, right? Some of that, right? It's your fault. But that's okay. There's a little caveat with taking responsibility, and that is don't beat yourself up too much. Maybe there were just some things outside of your control that just made the impact on your grades, and oh, that's just peak. That's just peak. But for my case, right, a lot of the things that could have been fixed, right, were under my control. For example, I should have revised more. I should have been the type of person who was more driven and more self-disciplined. I should have done more past papers, and I know that I could have done more myself. By owning your mistakes, by taking accountability, you'll be developing your own self-awareness, and it develops character. Like, you're becoming more mature as a person as well. Like, you don't want to be the type of person in the future who doesn't take accountability for their actions or for their mistakes, because A, it could lead to just a lot more arguments. B, you know, maybe if you get like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you know, it's it's so important to take accountability. And you know, if you don't, like, even as like a friend, if you're not going to take accountability for the things that you've done, you just become like hard to deal with and hard to work with. And the right step forward is to take some responsibility for your bad grades. And once you've done that, once you've recognized the problem, and once you've accepted that, then you can move on to solving those problems, which is what I'm going to explain in step 2 and step 3. My second tip is to let the emotions out. For the lads out there especially, I know it's tough. We live in a world where we're constantly being told to man up, where we're constantly told to sort ourselves out, especially, you know, we have to be successful and to be independent at a young age, and that external pressure, right, really does like F up our mental health, and it does make us feel insecure. I do think that a lot of young men, right, me included, when I was like 16 to 18, right, we tend to bury our thoughts. We tend to bury our emotions and not talk about it because we think that nobody else really cares, and we try to just move on with our lives without ever actually talking about it. I'm not sure if I said this in the previous video, but if it wasn't for me like letting my emotions out, you know, low-key crying on my own, right, or talking to somebody that I trust, or trying to reach out to people, I don't think I would have been able to move on, and I don't think I would have been able to revise with knowing that I had so much pent-up negative emotions inside of me. And yeah, I think letting your emotions out is just an important step in the process. It's so important to let your emotions out, and you're not a wuss for being an emotional person, right? And actually, after you've dealt with that grieving period, right, you'll find that afterwards you will become a more stronger minded person, and then in the back of your mind, you know, okay, I've already sulked, I've already accepted how I felt, okay, now I can move on to actually solving the problems. Now I've taken accountability, now I feel like emotionally in my heart like, okay, man can move on now, man can move on. Alright, that leads me on to the third tip. Once you've taken accountability, once you've let your emotions out, right, my third tip is to now go back to the drawing board. Like an engineer, right, we need blueprints, we need a set of requirements to follow so that we understand how to achieve our desired results. In this case, ask yourself, what is your desired results, right? For me, it was to get AAB. Keep that in mind, right? Now think about what are the requirements to do that. Like, what is the blueprint that you should follow to get those grades? Let's take me, for example, right? When I was like self-reflecting, right, I discovered that the cause of me getting bad grades were essentially A, because I was just very lazy and I couldn't be asked to put in the effort, right? B, I just had really bad study habits, like I had no work ethic whatsoever, and I just didn't know how to effectively learn for myself. And thirdly, I didn't revise early. I didn't start my revision in September or even October. So A, how do I solve being a lazy person and someone who just couldn't be asked to do something? Well, for me is I needed to have a goal. I needed to have something to aim for that actually meant that meant a lot to me, and that was get an engineering degree at a Russell Group university. And for me, that was either University of Birmingham, University of Sheffield, and that really gave me like a sense of hope for the future, and that made me like really like sort myself out. And also I after failing, right, and retaking, I wanted to also prove myself that actually my grades, right, I can work. If I want to know, if I do try, will I be able to get those high grades? My second problem was bad study habits. So how do I fix that? Well, I can fix that by attending all my lessons, right? Taking my homework seriously, and actually taking my free period seriously as well, and not just messing about. I should have done more past papers, right? I should have asked for more help too. And thirdly, I didn't revise early enough. So how do I solve that? Well, I revise early. My school starts from 9 till 3, right? But I tried to treat my school work and like my uni work as well, like sort of like a 9 to 5 job, where I would stay after school from 3 for an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on how I felt. And that 1 or 2 hours every day across the span of the whole year, that revision really does adds up, and it does increases your odds of success. I don't want to be making the mistake that I did last time, which was just to cram everything, right? Huge mistake. It was so much more stressful. I remember even like the smartest kids in my lessons were, although they were cramming as well, since they put in so much work throughout the whole year, they were nowhere near as stressed as I was, and they were more like chill. And maybe the inside they were still stressed, but they were able to pull through at the end. So basically, to summarize this entire video, there are 3 things that I remember doing when I get bad grades. And the first one is to take accountability for the things that I can control, and just to not beat myself up too much. Number 2 was to let the emotions out. Like straight facts, right? It's just hard revising knowing that there's a lot of pain in here, so make sure you deal with that first, and once you've done with that, right, then you should be ready to move on. And number 3, go back to the drawing board, reflect on the things that you did wrong, and think about things that you can improve. Don't be foolish enough to be making the same mistakes again, okay? And that's the video. Thank you for watching. Safe.